There are moments in life that seem ordinary until one sentence changes everything forever. The crowded little cafe looked like any other place on a quiet spring afternoon, filled with the soft sound of coffee cups and distant laughter. But at a table near the window, a woman smiled at the stranger sitting across from her and gently whispered, "You have kind eyes." She had no idea that those few innocent words would uncover a truth that would rewrite both of their lives. Before this day was over, she would realize she had unknowingly spoken to the one man whose name had once filled newspaper headlines, whose disappearance had become a mystery, and whose greatest secret had nothing to do with wealth or fame. It had everything to do with love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. If you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that one small act can change someone's entire life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Lena Brooks was 32 years old and had almost given up on the idea of finding someone who truly understood her. She worked as a children's librarian in a quiet suburban town where every day was filled with books, smiling children, and parents rushing from one responsibility to another. She loved helping children discover stories because books had once rescued her from loneliness after losing her mother when she was only 11. Yet despite spending her days surrounded by imagination, her own life had become painfully predictable. Friends kept insisting she deserved happiness, so after months of persuasion she finally agreed to let her cousin arrange a blind date. Across town, Ethan Mercer almost canceled the meeting 3 different times. Nobody at the cafe knew that the casually dressed man walking through the front door had once been the CEO of one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies. 3 years earlier, his face had appeared on magazine covers beside stories celebrating his billion-dollar success. Then, almost overnight, he vanished. Rumors spread everywhere. Some believed he had escaped after a business scandal. Others claimed he had suffered a breakdown. The truth was known by almost no one. After losing both his younger sister and his father within 6 months, Ethan discovered that success meant very little when every achievement echoed inside an empty house. His fortune remained, but he quietly stepped away from public life, donating much of his company to charitable foundations while choosing to live anonymously. He spent his days volunteering, mentoring struggling teenagers, and funding schools without attaching his name to any project. He wanted people to know him for his heart instead of his bank account. When Lena first saw Ethan waiting nervously beside the window, she noticed something unexpected. His clothes were simple, his smile uncertain, but his eyes carried a calm warmth she had rarely seen. Without thinking, she laughed softly and told him he had kind eyes. For just a second, Ethan looked completely speechless. No one had complimented his eyes in years. Most people who once recognized him had only looked at his expensive watch, his luxury cars, or the headlines surrounding his career. Nobody had ever noticed the sadness quietly hidden behind his smile. The conversation flowed naturally from there. They talked about childhood memories, favorite books, rainy afternoons, family traditions, and dreams they had quietly abandoned. Hours passed without either of them noticing. Unlike every date Lena had experienced before, there were no exaggerated stories meant to impress anyone. Ethan never mentioned his fortune. Lena never pretended to be someone she wasn't. Outside the cafe, the afternoon sun painted long shadows across the sidewalks while people hurried past without realizing 2 strangers were slowly discovering something rare. Over the next several weeks, they continued meeting during daylight hours in parks, museums, community gardens, and local charity events. Ethan admired how naturally Lena treated everyone with respect. She remembered the names of elderly volunteers, bought extra lunches for homeless veterans without making a scene, and always spoke kindly to people others ignored. One afternoon, while helping organize donated books at a neighborhood shelter, Lena noticed Ethan quietly repairing broken shelves after everyone else had left. He never asked for praise. He simply smiled and kept working until the room was safe for the children who would visit the following morning. Little by little, Lena found herself falling in love. Still, one mystery remained. Whenever conversations drifted toward Ethan's past, he gently changed the subject. His apartment was modest despite hints that he had once lived a completely different life. He seemed familiar with influential people who occasionally greeted him respectfully before walking away without revealing why they knew him. Curiosity grew inside Lena, but trust mattered more than answers. Everything changed one bright Saturday afternoon. The community center organized a fundraising event for children who needed medical treatment. Hundreds of volunteers filled the park. Families laughed while children painted colorful murals celebrating hope and kindness. Then a luxury black car quietly arrived near the entrance. An elderly gentleman stepped out and immediately walked toward Ethan before warmly embracing him. Lena watched in confusion. Moments later, several organizers gathered around Ethan with expressions of deep respect. One accidentally addressed him as Mr. Mercer before quickly apologizing. The name struck Lena like lightning. That evening, unable to ignore her questions, she searched online. Old interviews appeared, magazine covers, business awards, photographs of the billionaire entrepreneur who had disappeared years earlier. The man sitting beside her in every recent photograph was Ethan. The same gentle smile, the same kind eyes. Her heart raced, not because he had been wealthy, but because he had trusted her enough to let her know him before knowing his story. The following afternoon she met Ethan beneath the large oak tree where they often shared coffee after volunteering. Before she could ask anything, Ethan quietly admitted everything. He explained how fame had slowly stolen his identity. Every friendship became a business opportunity. Every relationship became a negotiation. People admired what he owned instead of who he was. Losing his family shattered the illusion that success could protect anyone from heartbreak. So he disappeared. Not to escape responsibility. To rediscover humanity. He admitted he had been terrified that if Lena recognized his name during their first meeting, she would never truly see him. Instead, the very first thing she noticed had been his eyes. Tears filled Lena's own eyes as she realized why those words had affected him so deeply. She smiled through her emotions and gently reminded him that kindness cannot be purchased, inherited, or hidden behind expensive titles. It lives inside people. Months later, they transformed Ethan's dream into reality together. Instead of building another company, they created community libraries, scholarship programs, reading centers, and shelters where every child could discover hope through education. Ethan continued giving anonymously whenever possible, while Lena personally visited every project, making sure each child felt seen, encouraged, and valued. The newspapers eventually rediscovered Ethan Mercer. This time, however, the headlines were completely different. They no longer celebrated a billionaire. They celebrated a man whose greatest investment had become ordinary people. And beside him stood the woman who had unknowingly reminded him that genuine kindness is recognized long before wealth, reputation, or success. Before we reach the ending, tell us in the comments, what matters more to you, someone's heart or their status? Years later, visitors entering one of their community libraries would notice a small wooden plaque near the entrance. It didn't mention money. It didn't mention awards. It simply read, "The world changes when we choose to see kindness before everything else." Every child who walked through those doors became proof that one honest compliment spoken from the heart could echo across countless lives. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who still believes in kindness, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope today. Because sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with perfect appearances or extraordinary introductions. Sometimes they begin with one simple sentence. You have kind eyes.